welcome to The Glance, where we discuss pertinent issues pertaining to COMM 360. Today we're going to talk about the confidence gap, which is an article that we have read by Caddy Kay and Claire Shipman, and we thought that it really was a good highlight on the issues that we had talked about, but also just on feminism and culture and the neo-Marxist critique that we've been looking at. The confidence gap, just for a quick summary for those of you who haven't read it, is talking about the reason why women are not at the top of the food chain per se. They're not at the top of the leaderboard of Fortune 500 companies. It is addressing the reason why there's still this gap, what they deem the confidence gap, between men and women at the highest levels of society and just in general life. So Colleen has our first point here. She's got something very interesting to share with us. So we're all ears, Colleen.
So the first quote that I found was interesting was, so the authors found kind of like a test that they did where they asked females and males to do a science competition, and they found that women were less likely to even want to participate in the first place. And they said that because they are less confident in general in their abilities, that led them to not want to pursue future opportunities. And I think that's like a huge statement in itself, is that it was even playing field, but the women, just were lacking confidence. And I think what it made me think about was empowerment and just what empowerment even means in our culture. Because a lot of times, even just reflecting on TV shows that we watched in class, that we believe that empowerment means taking a female and putting them in what we would call a male role. And it just made me question, like, why does that mean empowerment? Like, why can't a woman be doing the stereotypical like female roles, but just be confident in it? Because I think that's a lot more powerful than just replacing an already stereotype.
Right, and not just being like wearing pink or high heels and washing a car, but like actually being a real woman doing these things in TV or in movies or just in general cultural things that we see, but actually, like you were saying, doing them in a way that is feminine but still empowered.
Yeah,
absolutely. And just building off that point, why do we label those roles, these leadership roles, as stereotypical male roles? And it's because we don't see any females in those roles. And going back to the article with Victoria Breskel, we see that her students just don't have the confidence to even apply because they think they're defeated before they even apply. They don't think they're going to get it, so therefore, why try? I think the quote goes, and she thinks they're more than capable of having those high power positions and being whatever they want to be, but obviously they don't have that confidence.
Yeah, and building off of that, it just kind of reinforces the cyclical nature of the confidence gap. Like, so you were saying, like, women won't even try to apply because there's this lingering male presence in dominant roles, or leadership roles, rather. So they kind of shy away from that, and they already have a lack of confidence going into that because they are it's not something that is as natural to them as it would be for a male, because they don't see as many female figures in that role, so they have a lack of confidence. And like confidence, when you're more confident, you're willing to forgive yourself, and then you perform better. And if you lack confidence, you are more likely to take that personally, and it reinforces your lack of confidence. So they're more insecure going into these roles.
Right, and what you're talking about with role models and stuff, even as we're discussing this, I can only think of, say, like 2 major CEOs that are women in my head. And other than that, I can't really think of them. And the only reason that I know about them is because one has written a book and the other has been numerous times called things that are derogatory to women. It's been on a news article or something like that, right? So it's interesting to see how that plays out.
And it's not really in your face, it's really subtle into culture, and so I think it's something that just society kind of plays into. Like, you don't really have your defenses up when you're first born and being like, okay, I'm not going to have these assumptions about women and about men. Like, it's just so passively integrated that it's hard to kind of be guarding of that.
Right, like we even like ask like our little kids, like 8-year-olds, and they are already firmly entrenched in our stereotypes or already have this confidence gap even that we were talking about only at 8 years old, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I see that a lot with sports. They wrote about it in the article. From 8 years old, I've coached from anywhere from 8 to 15-year-olds, boys and girls. And with girls, you have to be so encouraging all the time because they just don't have the confidence or they don't think they're as good as they are. And you constantly have to say, no, Jenny, you're good. You're good at this. You're good at that. Try. And with Jimmy, you kind of have to bring him back. You have to reel him in. Because when Jimmy's team does well, he thinks he did well, and he walks around with that swagger. And when Jenny's team does well, but she doesn't think she does well, she's happy for her team, yes, but she just doesn't have the confidence, and it's so sad.
I think, like what we were talking about before, a lot of it is, I think that's true, but a lot of it is that we have these assumptions about how a male's gonna think and how a female's gonna think, because even as we were talking between like the 3 females here, like we all take criticism very differently. So like Adri would take it as more of a motivation, and Shelby and I would take it more as kind of a hindrance in our attempt at whatever we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, and it kind of Carol Dweck did a study that they mentioned, and she was saying that boys are instilled with more of a growth mindset where they're not afraid to fail, and whereas females were encouraged for their perfection more so. So I think like upbringing definitely contributes to how we view the male and female roles and how that confidence gap is comes about, because maybe it is more an individual thing, but then again, like our upbringing and other factors contribute to why we have this gap.
Right, and then maybe another reason why this confidence gap exists primarily with women and is between men and women is because women have a tendency to think in this more individual way, like you were saying about how their team does well, but they still feel like individually they didn't do as well, and so that affects their confidence. And I think that's a big reason, like learning about from this article, that I think that's a big reason why this confidence gap exists between women and men, because they are thinking that they have to do it all themselves, or they have to do it in this way according to these standards that have been set up.
Just as like a last note, one of the articles that we read from the Globe and Mail called "The Era of the Come Hither Snarl," which I didn't really think about too much like when I read it, but the more I kind of put time into it and reading the other articles, it made me again think of what empowerment means for women, and just there's so much like culture just plays so much into a woman's image and using like the sex image and like using, I don't know, there's just like there's such an idea that like if a woman is really snappy or really like kind of I don't know, like you can or just like uses language to bring someone down, and just I don't know, there's so much image kind of put on women that makes them seem confident, but I don't know, from a Christian perspective, I think that's such a bad way to empower women, because it's so shallow, and just like understanding, I mean, as a Christian, like we look at the world and know that it's like you need to gain your identity from Christ, and so I think that also plays into a lot of the lack of confidence. It's just this image-based culture.
Right, because everyone's image is even different, like we were discussing before with the different opinions. So yeah, thanks for ending us off there, Colleen. That was a really great note. Thanks for watching The Glance today. Tune in next week when we talk about moral issues and prerogatives in the Jersey Shore.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
It's
it's
going
really
to be good.